my daughter had her wisdom teeth out at 9:30 this morning, so I was a little iffy whether I was going to be able to make this, but apparently she does very well under anesthesia, and she has been cracking up all of her friends on FaceTime for the past hour since she got home because they all think it's hysterical to see my doped up daughter who's trying to talk to them all. So she's in a very happy place right now, we'll say. And I asked her what she wanted. Yeah, she's 15, and I asked her what she wanted to watch on TV, and she's watching like Dora the Explorer and all the cartoons from when she was little. So I think she's in a very she's in a happy place. All right, so what I just real quick, if you guys could just go down and give quick. You don't have to give a big introduction, but in case there were different people on the call from last week, so we know who you're talking to, just name and where you're from would be great. So if we can just start with Blake.
Blake Sloan from Plymouth, Minnesota.
Cool. Kathy Ingles from Rhode Island. She lives in Rhode Island. Yes. Darren? Darren, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Darren Rowland from Mountain View, California.
All right. Thanks. MB?
MB in Mill Valley, California, and I love your "Hawk Will Never Die" sign behind you.
Oh, thanks. That's back there. Reginald?
Reginald Martin, Houston, Texas.
All right. Ruben?
Ruben Nieves, Director of Training, Clovis, California.
All right. Tracy?
Tracy Whitted, Fort Collins, Colorado.
All right. And Kelly Kratz, Philadelphia. Okay, so we have this call today is going to be pretty much the format of most of our calls. For those of you that just jumped on, we're going to be doing the intro to PCA, the intro to the workshop today. So what I'd like to do in the first half hour is model how I do the intro, and then the second half hour I'm going to ask for some of your ideas. What are some thoughts you have or ideas on how to get the audience engaged? What have you seen done at workshops that you've liked? What don't you like? Which is always a good thing to bring up, because sometimes you might have an idea and think, oh, this is great, and then you realize there's people in the audience that really don't like to partner up with a stranger and talk for 10 minutes. So it's good to bring awareness to some of these things. As I said, I'm going to have the PowerPoint on the screen next to me as we go through it. You don't have to be that high tech. You can always take some notes and then look at it later on your own. But I just do this to kind of keep the framework of what we're doing. This is the newest Double Goal Coach PowerPoint. It actually was just updated recently. So the content is basically the same, but we try to keep them updated. We put a few little background graphics in there and a few other things to add to it. So is there anyone on this Hangout right now that was not able to open the PowerPoint or did not receive the email that had the link to the PowerPoint? Because if you did not, let me know and I can send it to you again. The only thing to be really careful of is there's a Mac version and there's a PC version. And the reason it's important to do that is because of the video embeds. They might not play properly if you're trying to open the Mac version on a PC and vice versa. But if you get a chance to go through it, double check that the videos play for you. And they don't play automatically, but you do have to do an extra click to get them to play. So any of you that are familiar with PowerPoint, that should make sense to you. If not, I can help you. I can walk you through it. All right. First thing is first. What I'd like to do last week, just a recap from last week's call. Last week we talked about what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish in these workshops? And setting the tone in the first 5 minutes is probably the most important thing of all. And so we brainstormed a little bit about what do you like in a presenter when you go to a workshop, especially one that maybe you're not that thrilled about going to. What is really most important right off the bat? And what were 3 things, either things that you said or what were 3 things that we brought up last week that are really important for the presenter to convey in the beginning of a workshop? Does anybody remember?
That winning is important too.
Yes, the importance of winning, absolutely. Thanks, Reginald. What else?
I would say a story that gives a little bit of credibility so that people aren't looking at you with cross arms and goofy looks.
Good, and I think you hit 2 of them right there in one. A story that connects you to the audience, and you have to give yourself establish some kind of a credibility. You have to be the expert in the room without being the know-it-all, I think is a good way to look at it. And one more. Anything else you like?
The message.
The message, right. The message has to be clear and upfront. State your goal right away. So that's very important. What I wanted to do, and I'm going to be going through these sort of as we go, but today I thought would be a great time just to briefly go through the SMAC recipe that I sent to you, that systematic, methodical, and consistent recipe for great presentations. So I'm going to take a couple minutes just to go through those and then see if you had any questions. Now, the first one on here, if you don't have it in front of you, that's okay. I'm going to read through it, but I did send it to all of you in the first announcement. The first one is obvious, knowing the content cold. There's nothing worse than a presenter that's up there going, is not sure of the content. So that's where this course is so important, and that's where knowing the PowerPoint presentation, knowing what comes next, you cannot spend enough time and be comfortable. We want the slides to support you. We don't want you to support the slides. Because the other worst thing is having someone read the PowerPoint slides. I could pay anybody to go read PowerPoint slides. We want to know that the PowerPoint slides are going to aid in your presentation, but that's not the crux of your presentation. That being said, also, the second time I ever did a double goal coach workshop was actually at Villanova University for Episcopal Academy. And Jay Wright was the basketball coach at the time, and he was the speaker that came right before me. So I was thinking like I was the keynote speaker, he was my intro, but it wasn't really that way. So Jay Wright, Villanova's basketball coach, gets up there and does about a 15 to 20 minute talk about, a lot about Villanova, his background, but his kids go to Episcopal Academy. So he said, just bring a flash drive, I'll have my laptop all set up. So mind you, second time ever done this, 90 coaches in the audience from Villanova and Episcopal Academy. Jay Wright is introducing me. So he goes, he's fantastic. I get up after him. I start talking for 10 minutes and the computer goes dead. So now I'm in a panic because I know my slides, but I don't know the content enough to just rattle it off the top of my head. The people have books. Computer goes dead because Jay Wright forgot to bring his power cord and the battery died on his laptop. So knowing the content and knowing what's coming next, I fudged my way through an awesome 90-minute workshop. Apparently it was really good, but there are times when you're not going to have the slides in front of you. So it is important to know what you're doing. And I was expecting, free season basketball tickets or something from Jay Wright. Never got any of it, but I thought that was the least he could do for putting me out there. Okay, so that's about the content. Number 2 is reaching out to the partner ahead of time. And this is something we briefly talked about last week. In order to have a great presentation, you have to know the goals of the partner that you're presenting to. So this is a must. We have a system set up when you apply for workshops that I'll talk about later that will send you an email reminder 3 days before you present your workshop. That is a fantastic reminder to you to call the partner, because everybody has an email address and a phone number of the partner that you're going to be presenting to. And you can ask lots of questions, and we talked about this last week too. Find out about the room setup. Find out about how many people are going to be there. Are they familiar with PCA? Are they not familiar with PCA? Then there's a lot of logistics. Do I need to bring a computer and a projector? Do you have a microphone for me if it's a huge room? But the most important question I always find is, why did you want to partner with PCA? And you can get a lot of information just by that one question. So you can tailor your workshop in such a way to make sure that you hit those points. So that is probably, I'm glad it's number 2 on the list, because that is probably one of the most crucial things that ever happen. Also, in terms of a partner, if you have someone coming to do a workshop for you and you don't hear from them, and you have 30 to 40 coaches taking time out of their schedule to come, you want to make sure that they're there. So it also gives the partner a little bit of peace of mind. Ruben, did you want to add to that?
Kelly, we're getting good with those signals.
I know, I can tell.
Yeah. Everything Kelly mentioned is important. Also very important is confirm the date, time, and location of the workshop, and even the type of workshop. Occasionally, there's a miscommunication, or occasionally something changes last minute and it didn't get passed from this person to that person to PCA to the trainer. So it's especially, you may be driving across town, you may be getting on a plane. You want to confirm date, time, location, and type of workshop in that call.
Absolutely. Yep, and also the information might not be correct. I've had it before where the room might be wrong or the room was changed at the last minute. So be careful about that. All right, number 3, obvious again, arrive 30 minutes early. I arrive 45 minutes early all the time. That's just my set time because, as you said, you never know what's going to happen. And, Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. It usually does. I've had basketball games going on in the gym where I'm ready to give a workshop. and they're like, oh yeah, the game will be over at 7 o'clock. What time are you starting? And I say, oh, 7 o'clock. So, it always helps just to get there early and get things set up. Number 4 is be game ready, which I think, again, it becomes, you guys are all athletes, you're coaches, you know what it's like to get ready for a game, but, and I'm sure Ruben can attest to this too, you've got people that have been working a long day, and they're coming to see your workshop, so they're tired. And there have been times, in all honesty, that I have driven to a workshop and I've gone, I am exhausted. It is 7 o'clock at night. I am so tired. I don't feel like doing this right now. And I've sat in the parking lot and gone, and you really have to get yourself geared up, because this is the first time for a lot of these people that they've heard about this. So getting yourself, whatever you need to do to get yourself psyched up, just like you would for a game or a competition, that's sometimes what you need to do, because you're it. You're the one they're coming to see. You're the one they're taking time out of. So whatever you need to do, if it starts with a double espresso at Starbucks, let it be that, whatever it needs to be. But it's a good routine. Okay, number 5 is what we're doing today. Number 5 is starting with a bang. And this one says, hone your introductory remarks to be able to state PCA's goal, which is using sports to develop better athletes, better people. Establish your credibility and get participants into an interactive exercise within 5 minutes. Get multiple voices in the room within 5 minutes and throughout the workshop. Now, this is something we're going to talk a lot about today, because I have been to many, many workshops or presentations before, and the presenter will throw out a question to the audience. Okay, so let's say you're my audience and I'm throwing out a question to you, and I say, okay, how many of you have been, can somebody tell me about a great coach they had in their life once? So if I was going to throw that out, let's say there was 25 of you in the audience, and I said, can someone share with me about a coach that really has had a big influence on your life? Okay, and let's say MB raises her hand and says, yeah, I'll tell you about a coach. How many voices are talking right now? How many people are engaged? 1. Right. What are the other 24 of you doing? You're saying, thank God she didn't call on me, I'm going back to sleep. So when we talk about multiple voices and multiple participants in the room, there's always that stress of, oh my gosh, she's going to call on me, cold calling, which is scary. And number 2, woo, everybody else is off the hook. You don't have to think anymore. And that's sort of natural psychologically what we do. So we want to come up with ways to get everybody engaged and involved and talking and multiple voices going on. So yeah, every once in a while in a workshop, you can throw out a question. And Ruben is really excellent at questioning, and I'm hoping you're going to learn a lot from his questioning style. But if there's a better way to get a lot of people talking and engaged, that's what we want to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And along with that, number 6 in the SMAC recipe is to involve and validate participants. People feel better when they're educated, and you want to involve them. This is long, but it talks about different ways to involve people. You can use buzz groups, put them in a couple different groups, have them stand up, have them sit down. Asking people questions that don't involve a one-word answer. I've seen a lot of trainers, say, how many of you think positive coaching is the way to go? Raise your hand. Great, that's too easy. Really challenge the audience, because that's what's you're going to get the most impact out of it. Eye contact, humor. If you can't have a sense of humor about this, they're not going to have any fun doing it. And I personally think that humor is a huge, important element in coaching. Any of you that have ever coached any age level, I was going to say the little guys, but any age level, if you don't have a good sense of humor, you're in trouble. So I think that's something to bring into your workshops too. How can you use humor in your coaching? All right, I'm going to stop there for right now. We'll get to the other 6 a little bit later. But questions on that before we continue? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend that you're my audience, and I'm going to give a sample. Now, I probably have 4 or 5 different intros that I do, depending on what age level or what type of sports, or if it's a multi-sport room where there's a lot of different sports involved, or one sport. I'm going to sort of pretend that you guys are like youth coaches from a lot of different sports. My youth league around here is called Coventry Little League, the Coventry Sports Organization. So you guys are going to be all Coventry coaches, lacrosse, baseball, whatever it is. So I'm just going to get started. Is that okay with everybody? So if I ask you a question or ask you to do something, if you could just answer as if you were one of the coaches, that would be fantastic. All right, so here is the beginning. Let me just get through logistics. Hi, I've just been introduced. This is Kelly. She's from Philadelphia. She played 3 sports. She went to St. Joe's. She's got 4 kids. Okay, so then the audience, is like, okay, great, welcome, Kelly. I always start off actually with this slide up. And let me make it bigger so you can see it. Ha 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 ha. Maybe I won't make it bigger. Sorry about that. I don't know why that's not big. Okay, I'll make it bigger that way. I don't know why, for some reason when I play it, it's not working. But luckily, this is not my computer that I use for my presentations. This is my old desktop that I use just for this purpose alone. All right, so text to sign in. Folks, what I'd like you to do right now, PCA has just implemented a fantastic way to get you logged into these workshops because we want you to get credit for being here. We also want to link you to some amazing resources that we have available. And in order for you to be logged into this workshop, we're going to ask you to text. So I'd like everybody to get out their smartphone right now. And what I'm going to ask you to do is text this number, 650-763-2405. And in the subject of that, you're going to be putting, and what I do, there's a number, let me back up for a second. There's a number assigned to every workshop. What you will be assigned that number. You will know what the number is going into the workshop. So if it's a Coventry Sports Workshop, the number might be 13152. So then I would tell the audience, all right, after you text that number, in the subject, I'd like you to include the pound sign, or if you're under the age of 15, it's a hashtag, the number 13152, your first name and your last name and your email address, and then hit send. And when you hit send, you're going to get a confirmation back from PCA saying, thank you for logging into this workshop. So I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to do that right now. I had one person ask me a few weeks ago, if I sign in and text in, are you going to send me a lot of email crap? And that was a quote. And I said, PCA is fantastic because we only send you email crap if you would like it. So this will get you 4 times a year. You're going to get a Momentum newsletter. However, we have so many resources that are available that you can get sent coaching tips and parenting tips sent to you weekly. You can go on the website and do that yourself. But this is to log you in, and 4 times a year we might send you a little correspondence just to keep tabs and see how you're doing. So this is the very first slide I have up. A lot of times when you do workshops, this is between you and me, a lot of times when you do workshops, you'll have people kind of wandering in the first 10 minutes. So I'll have this slide up just so they can sign in. But it is how I start my workshops. All right, so the next slide, I actually reversed these. So this is the next slide to come up. And I'm going to thank you all for coming to this Double Goal Coach workshop. The title of the workshop is Coaching for Winning and Life Lessons. And we're going to talk a lot about this today. My first question to you is, we're called the Positive Coaching Alliance. And my first question to you, I just want you to think. I don't want you to answer out loud. When you think of positive coaching, okay, what are some thoughts that come into your mind? I'm going to teach you how to be a more positive coach.
That winning isn't important.
Okay, thank you. Winning is not important. What else? And what I would ask you to do too, I might ask you to turn to a partner next to you and just give them your first thought on the top of your head. When I say 1, 2, 3, I'm going to have you turn to the person next to you. Don't even introduce yourself and just call out. What's the first thought in your head of positive coaching? Go. So who can call out? Winning isn't everything. Go ahead. What else?
Role modeling.
Role model. What else?
Mistakes are okay.
Mistakes are okay. Well, you guys must have done some homework. Good job.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Nice. Everybody gets a trophy. Thank you for your honesty, Tracy. I appreciate it. Exactly what Tracy just said was what I was thinking. When I was introduced to Positive Coaching Alliance, I was coming from a very competitive background. I was sandwiched in between 2 brothers my entire life, so I had to compete for everything. I then was a high school 3-sport athlete, went on to play 2 Division I sports in college. I played field hockey and lacrosse at St. Joe's, as you heard. And for me, if we weren't keeping score and it wasn't competition, it wasn't fun, because that's just the way I was. That's the way I was wired. When I first started teaching elementary school in the 90s, there was a huge push to take competition out of schools. It was the first time that they said, you know what, we can't play dodgeball anymore because it's way too competitive. I talked to my phys ed teacher the very first week I was teaching, and I said, oh, can I come down and do gym class? And he said, well, why would you want to do that? I said, because it's elementary gym. I'd love to do it. So I go down to the gym with these kids, and I said, what are you doing today? And he said, we're playing snowball fights. And I said, what are snowball fights? And he said, snowball fights are where we have these big pom-poms, and we toss them at each other, and if you get hit, you have to freeze and stand there like a snowman. And I said, well, it sounds kind of like dodgeball. And he said, shh, don't say that word. That's too competitive. We're not allowed to play dodgeball anymore. I said, well, how do you get unfrozen? He said, well, somebody else comes around and tags you. I said, well, where's the loser's jail? Remember the loser's jail from when you were kids? Where's the loser's jail? He said, oh, we can't have losers and winners. And I said, well, do you keep score for any of the things you do in gym? And he said, no, we're not allowed to keep score. It's got to all be team building games. So then, a few years later, I started coaching my daughter's 6-year-old soccer team. And again, sorry, at that level, we don't keep score. It's all about fun. You can't tell the kids there's a winning score over here and a losing team over here, and you can't keep track of things. It's all about the skills and the fun. And I got a little bit discouraged. So when I first came to a Positive Coaching Alliance workshop as a youth lacrosse coach and parent, and I was told that positive coaching is about getting the best performance out of athletes, and we want to create an environment where winning is a byproduct of the effort and hard work they put into something. I stopped right there in my tracks, and I said, thank goodness there's an organization that is teaching coaches that winning is important, but winning is a byproduct of effort and coaching and success. And I said to myself, all right, this is the group that I want to talk to. This is the group I want to hear about. So I listened for the next 90 minutes, and my mind was blown because, of course, I knew everything there was to know. I played Division I sports. I was a coach. I was coached. I knew exactly what I was doing until I heard some of these principles, and I realized that what I was using to motivate my players was the exact opposite of what I should be doing. And what I was doing well could have been done better. So I learned a lot of things. I hope you will today, too. What I'm going to ask is that you just keep an open mind. And if you have any questions for me, stop me along the way. If you find anything that works really well for you, please share it. But this is a workshop, and we are considered a partner of your organization. We don't want you to walk out of this workshop and just keep it to yourself and walk away and never think about it again. We've given you a book, which is called The Power of Double Goal Coaching. It's the lasting resource.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow.
Did you all get cut out
Technical
too?
difficulties?
Yeah, we all got cut
Technical
out.
difficulties? Okay. I think it was on Kelly's end, maybe. Huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you guys receive the slideshow?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I thought maybe I did it first.
I haven't been able to find it, so I'll make sure I get that.
We're all back.
Ruben, you're muted. I don't think we can hear you.
Thanks,
There you
Reginald. Yeah, what I was saying, Mary Beth, is the way we share these PowerPoints and all our workshop materials with our trainers is that we have a shared folder. Oh, I'm getting a text message from Kelly that she's trying to reconnect, so she's working on it. Oh, her power just went out. Okay, well, you know what?
Poor thing.
Everyone makes me miss the East Coast.
The good thing is that I'm on the call, and I won't be able to do exactly what Kelly does, but I can do something similar. So let me just respond to her. And so we have this Google Drive share folder that we invite all the trainers to, and then you can access this workshop PowerPoint and any of our workshop PowerPoints, videos, trainer presentation materials, trainer aids. As far as how Kelly shared this with all of you, I don't think she invited you to that folder. I think she either sent you the PowerPoint as an attachment or sent you a link. I'm not sure of that. So we'll have to follow up with Kelly for those of you who don't have access to the PowerPoint yet. The PowerPoint, keep in mind, the PowerPoint is not the workshop. The PowerPoint is an aid. It's a visual aid for the participants. It helps the trainer with staying on track enough and their flow. But the workshop is all about the interaction between you and the participants and each other. The workshop is the environment, the learning that you guide. Okay, and so The PowerPoint is an important tool, and it's especially important for new trainers, but it's just that, okay? So where Kelly left off was her opening story. What did Kelly do in the first 5 minutes to get all the voices into the room and get everybody engaged? Does anybody remember what she did?
Well, I think she did 2 things. The first, can you hear me?
Yes, Mary Beth.
I think the first thing she did was relate herself to them, where she was in their shoes, in their seats, and she didn't want to be there. And then I think she also told this, and then she transitioned that to how it changed her life and made her a better coach, and this is what she was looking for.
Yes, and she asked a question in there as part of what you're talking about, Mary Beth. She asked a question, and it had us talk to a partner about it. Does anybody remember the question she asked?
What you think of when you hear positive coaching alliance?
Yes. So I would say, I don't know if it was the first 2 minutes, first 1 minute, she threw that question out to us. She had us turn to a partner and talk to somebody. So we were talking to someone else in the workshop very early on. Now, the other thing that the workshop PowerPoint is designed to help guide you to is a discussion about the coach that had the greatest impact on you. And there's a couple of, you have a choice as a trainer, a couple of very short video clips. One is Kevin Durant during his MVP acceptance speech last year, talking about how when he was younger, his dream was to be a rec league coach. So that's one possible video you can use. The other one is Steve Young in a more formal PCA video talking about the great impact that your first couple coaches have on you and that had on him. And in his case, they were parent volunteers. So whichever of those two videos you use, it's to set up the question, well, you all had coaches growing up. What coach did you have that was the most influential for you? And I'd like somebody to answer that question. Who was the most influential coach in your life personally? Who will get us started?
I'll answer. I was
Tracy, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Before you continue,
okay.
When you ask that question, you as a trainer, you may indeed be greeted with the same uncomfortable silence that I was greeted with. I did not panic. I did two things. What were the two things I did when I got greeted with the silence?
You asked again, who will get us started? Who's going to save us?
I asked again a different way. That was the second thing I did. I did something else without talking before that, though, and it was an intentional, strategic response to the silence. What did I do? Kelly, do you know what I did?
I actually didn't hear what you did.
Yeah. I waited. I waited.
I didn't hear anything.
I didn't. You know, when I asked the question, I didn't panic and answer and move forward and give up. I waited. I was patient. Someone is going to help you out. And if they don't help you out, you ask again, who's willing to get us started? If Tracy doesn't come to my rescue there, then I'll say, you guys aren't going to leave me hanging up here. Come on, someone help me out. People want you to succeed. So, okay, Tracy, now let me turn it over to you and answer the question. And then Kelly, do you want to pick it up from there? She's going to tell us about a coach that had a great impact on her.
Sure.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, I was a club swimmer and pretty successful, but he just wanted to, get me to the next level, and he just took time to know me as a person and my family, and he actually gave me one of his Olympic jackets to, motivate me in other ways besides just my time on the scoreboard.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sharing that. Tracy, can you pick on someone else that you think had a great story about an influential coach in their life?
Oh, is Blake on here? I don't see him. No,
I
he
don't
didn't.
know what happened to him.
He didn't come back. All right, Reginald.
Can't hear you.
Now, what did I just do? I just took the pressure off of me and put it on Tracy.
I think
You're on
Reginald
mute. Reginald muted.
It would be a track coach that I had. He convinced me to do the high jump, and I was terrible at it. I was a sprinter, and I wanted to stick to the sprinting, you know, the 220 or something. But he told me to step outside of my comfort zone, give it a try, and I learned to like it. And I didn't really place in any of the meets in it, but it let me know that I can't just be afraid to try something different and actually get out of my comfort zone when it comes to competing in sports and only stick to things that I thought I was perfect at.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Absolutely. All right, now I would get a couple more people, maybe 2 or 3 to share. Let me step back 1 second because thank you guys for the little hiccup there. It's apparently very windy today, and I lost power in the middle of April, which is strange. But what I was going to say is one of the things that I don't like to do in the very beginning of a workshop, because I find that people are very rigid and they don't want to share and they're not open to share. So the very first thing that I do in my workshops, right after I show the Steve Young video or the Kevin Durant video, and I'm sure Ruben explained whichever one they wanted to choose. Ruben, is that what you? Okay. I like the Steve Young video a lot because it talks about the first couple coaches, and a lot of times I'm talking to youth audiences. So what I would have people do at that moment is I would ask everyone to get up out of your seats, and we're going to create a timeline across the room. And what we're going to do is we're going to, did you mention this at all, Ruben? Did you get into this at all? Okay. What I ask people to do is stand up in the back of the room, and we're going to make a semicircle around the chairs. Those of you that have been coaching for 0 to 5 years, and I'd show them in the room where to go. You're going to stand right over here. Those of you that have been coaching 5 to 10 years are going to be sort of the back corner of the room. 10 to 15 years over here, and the 15 plus are over here, and no one's allowed to go outside the door. There's always somebody that says, I've been coaching for 75 years, and I'm going to go outside the door. We'd like you to stay in the room. I'm going to ask you to, when I say go, I'm going to ask you to stand up in that timeline. So you're going to need to talk to someone next to you, introduce yourself, and tell them what you coach and how many years you've been coaching. So I would do that first, right after the Steve Young video, before I even put this question up there. And I'll give you 1 minute to do that. Go. And then everybody gets up out of their seats, you line up, you talk to somebody and say, hi, my name is Kelly, I've been coaching for about 15 years, lacrosse, hockey, basketball, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then, after 1 minute, I say, okay, everybody stop. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, now this is also something that I like to do, if there are 25 coaches or less in a room, this is where I have them introduce themselves. And I have them say their first name, how many years they've been coaching, and what they're coaching. Now, some trainers have said, I don't take the time to do that because I just don't have enough time. If there's more than 20 to 25 coaches, you can't do this. It just takes way too much time. But 25 or less, why do you think that would be an important thing to do at a workshop? Why do you think that's valuable?
So they interact with one another throughout the rest of the sessions?
Okay, good. They can interact with each other. They know a little bit about each other. What else?
Well, two things I can think of. One is that you're establishing sort of a community within the room, and I think that's important. Wow. The second thing just left my mind. Oh, you're creating some credibility also between some of the more senior coaches as well.
Exactly. And that's probably the biggest thing. People like to be appreciated for what they've been doing. And someone in a room that's been coaching for 30 years, I've had people that have said, oh my gosh, I've been coaching for 35 years. I had one guy that said he'd been coaching football for 42 years. And at the time I was 41 years old. And I was thinking, that's awesome. He's been coaching football longer than I've been alive. And when it gets around to somebody like him and he says, I've been coaching for 40 years, and I say, Jim, thank you so much. We are going to really draw on your experience in this workshop. Would that be okay with you? And a lot of times that kind of chips the ice off of Jim, and instead of him being the folded arm crosser like I know everything, he all of a sudden opens up and goes, oh, wow, yeah, I can be helpful. Thank you. So I find that to be extremely valuable. Also for me, if I'm asking, I have never played softball in my life. So if I have a couple of people that are baseball or softball coaches and I can kind of pay attention to where they are and I'll peg somebody, and someone brings up a baseball or softball question, or I just can't think of an example, I'll say, oh, okay, yeah, Darren, could you give me a softball example, or can you give me a baseball example for that? And it just helps me see who's in the room and what ages we're talking about. So that's the very first thing I do. They've talked, they've introduced Then I say, okay, now what I'm going to ask you to do is turn to the person next to you on your right or your left, and I'm going to have you pair up in groups of 2 or 3. And I want you to talk to them about who was the most influential coach in their life, but even more importantly, why. And I would, again, give them 2 minutes, no more than 2 minutes, and I always tell them how much time they have. You have 2 minutes to share between both of you. Go. So then they share, they talk amongst themselves. Usually the volume gets a lot louder. They're laughing, they're joking around. And then I stop them after 2 minutes. And instead of saying, okay, who wants to share? Here's what I embed into this one. One of the things I want you to do after this workshop is to take a lesson with you right away. One of the things I have found in coaching kids is that they are very focused on what they do. And sometimes that focus on how good am I, how am I doing, how is my performance, sometimes blocks them from seeing the fantastic things that are happening with their teammates. So I'm going to show you a quick example right now. I don't want you to share what your most influential coach is. I want one of you to share what you heard somebody else say. Who was an influential coach to somebody, one of your partners? Can someone share that for me? And I'll actually say it just like that in a workshop and say, how could you use this in your practices? When is it more valuable for a kid to notice something great that somebody else did? And then, so I'll have like Mary Beth share what Tracy said, or Reginald share what Blake said. And they just get the idea. It makes the person that's being talked about, it makes them feel good because somebody was listening. So after, we already did the sharing, so I'm not going to do that. But after the sharing part, I would say, you know what, and this is true. No one, I have done 100 plus workshops. I did my 104th workshop last weekend. Not one time has anyone ever said the most influential coach in my life taught me how to swing a baseball bat, taught me how to do a great flip turn, or taught me how to shoot a perfect foul shot. Why? Why is that not the most important thing that you remember? And I've even had coaches have said, it wasn't even my best season. We didn't even have winning banners, but this was a really influential coach in my life because what did you hear Tracy say? What did you hear Reginald say? And I'll get a couple people to say, well, I heard Tracy say that her coach gave her a team jacket. Well, that's really cool. I heard Reginald say a coach told me that he thought I could do the high jump, even though I didn't think I could do the high jump. So these are what we call life lessons. And so here's what I'm going to ask you to do now. When we go back to our seats, I'm going to ask you, as you're walking back to your seat, I want you to find 2 people that you have not met yet, and I want you to tell them 2 of the most important life lessons that sports has ever taught you. So as you're milling back to your seat, I want you to just stop somebody and say, hey, Ruben, you know what I learned? I learned about persistence. And hey, Tracy, you know what I learned? I learned about this. And I think we can do this in about 1 minute as we go back to our seats and sit. Go. So again, it gives them something to do while they're going back to their seat, breaks the ice, gets them talking, and by the time they sit down, I've listened and I've heard probably about 10 or 15 life lessons just in their walking. So in a workshop, I like to use my time wisely. Yeah, they could walk back to their seats quietly, but then nothing would be done. I like to give them a purpose. Does that make sense? That's just what I do. Okay, so now we've got the most influential coach in your life. How do you want to be remembered? I've already hit on life lessons. The last thing that I do here is, okay, everybody's back at their seat again, and I ask everyone, and I'm trying to find my book right now. Hold on, which I have here somewhere. All right, this isn't the right book, but this is one of our books, or my Double Goal Coach book is. What I'm going to do is ask all of you right now just to take a minute quietly. And I want to let you think about this because this had a big impact on me when I went to this workshop. Someday, the kids that you're coaching right now are going to be coaches. I'm sure a lot of them will be because of the influence you had on them. And I want you to think about, how do you want to be remembered by those kids? How do you want to be at this workshop 15, 10, whatever years from now, when I'm talking to those kids that you've coached and I say, who's the most influential coach in your life? They're going to say your name. And I want to know how you want to be remembered. So in the next minute, just quietly to yourself, we're not going to share it. I want you to open up the blank inside cover of your book and just write down how you want to be remembered as a coach. And that is what changed the way I coached, because I had never thought about how I want to be remembered. I was living in the day. I was living in the moment. That is what changed my life. And I ended up writing it on a sticky note and ended up putting it in my car and putting it on my bathroom mirror right before practice, anywhere that I could see it. And I had to remind myself every day after a really horrible practice where the players didn't do anything I said, I got back and I saw that sticky note and I said, yeah, my goal was to have fun and to make the kids feel good about themselves, and that didn't happen today. So that, to me, was the crucial moment in my coaching. It was the pivotal moment in my coaching career, and I'm going to ask you to do that as well. So then I give them a minute to write that down. Then that's all the passion, that's all the story. I know we had power outages, but that usually takes me about 10 minutes from beginning to end to do that part. Next, we get into the PCA logistics. Now, how many of you have ever been to a PCA workshop before? Has anyone never heard of PCA or been to a workshop before? You know, you'll get about, in Pennsylvania, you get about 99% of the people that are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. PCA, Positive Coaching Alliance, is a nonprofit organization. We started in 1998 out of Stanford University's athletic department. And the cool thing about this is we have an expanding impact. I'm going to show you this quick Google map. The neat thing, guys, trainer to trainer, is that at the bottom on your PowerPoint, at the bottom you'll see notes. And this gives you a lot of the details. Now, this is not a script. This is not verbatim. This just gives you a lot of background and ideas. So if you don't know necessarily all 11 chapters and cities, it's okay. You don't need to know them by name, but if you're in Colorado, you know, it's good to know, yeah, we have a local chapter right here in Denver, which is super cool. We've got a chapter in Florida, in Houston, wherever you're at. Point out where the local chapter is. But it's good for them to see that we have over 5,000 partners all over the country. We've impacted, there are 40 million youth in this country playing sports. And our goal by 2020 is to impact 20 million people, parents and coaches. And we're headed towards that goal. And I asked, this is something I actually threw in at the last workshop that I'm going to use again. I asked the coaches, I said, now how many of you saw our Super Bowl commercial this year during the Super Bowl? And I always get hands up, and it always cracks me up. And I said, yeah, because there was none, because a lot of the hands are, if you didn't raise your hand, it's because there was no Super Bowl commercial. We don't have a huge budget to be able to put out Super Bowl commercials. So how in the world are we expanding? Why do you think our movement of developing better athletes and better people is spreading and is working and is growing? Does anybody have any ideas why that would be happening? With a very low advertising budget?
Because it works?
Word of mouth.
Because it works. Because coaches are seeing results. And we are a results-driven society, folks, and they are seeing results using our principles. All right, now, as I said before, we're a partnership. We're called the Positive Coaching Alliance. We're not the Positive Coaching Lecture that you're hearing. So we're not in this alone. Unfortunately, we don't have the advertising budget we usually do, so we have a lot of really cool corporate sponsors. This is where I'll point out if I'm doing a soccer workshop, I'll bring up that we have a national sponsor that's the NSCAA. Whatever it is, U.S. Lacrosse is one of our national sponsors. AAU is one of our national sponsors. A group like U.S. Lacrosse has actually embedded Positive Coaching Alliance workshop into their U.S. Lacrosse training, which is fantastic. So they think so much of this, they actually have changed their whole training certification to include PCA, which is pretty awesome. The next slide. Okay, now if you open up to page 8 in your book, you'll see a smaller list of National Advisory Board members. We're not doing this alone. And the cool thing about Positive Coaching Alliance is we are not a research company. We're a company that gets research that other people do. And we get some of our ideas and the best practices from the greatest coaches and athletes that have ever played the sport. So we have multiple sports. We also have Phil Jackson as our national spokesperson. Why would we pick Phil Jackson? He's the winningest coach in the NBA. I once heard that Phil Jackson, even after an NBA championship, usually gives ESPN about 8 minutes. I heard this from Linda Cohn, who is an ESPN, you guys know Linda Cohn, she's an ESPN sportscaster. She said Phil Jackson gives 8 minutes. That's what you get from him. So if you're going to talk to him after an NBA championship, that's what he'll give you. Talking about PCA, he'll talk for about 20 if you stop him. So I just thought that was really cool when I heard that from her. We've got, and again, we do have a customized screen for baseball. We have a customized screen for soccer, but this is kind of the all sports ones. So Herm Edwards, Shane Battier. Now this last person down here, you probably don't recognize her. Her name is Vanessa Bernard, and she was actually awarded the Double Gold Coach of the Year award in 2014. We try to recognize coaches just like you out there. They're doing the best job that you can do, and you're doing it the right way. And every year, we would fly a few coaches out to California to be at our National Youth Awards banquet, and you'll be recognized for being a National Double Gold Coach of the Year, which is a pretty cool thing as well. All right. Questions on that before I keep going? I call that all the business end. That's kind of the business chunk. Again, that takes about 5 minutes to do the business part. Now, the next one is this is where we're going to end for the intro. All right. I want you to take a look at this model. Now, all of us can say, yeah, we're coaches, we're great coaches. Now you have a philosophy. Now you know how you want to be remembered. But let's talk about this double goal. In our society, most people have one goal, and that goal is to win. And as a coach, look what your first goal is. Your first goal is to strive to win. The second goal, though, and the more important goal, is teaching life lessons. Now, when I asked you to go back to your seat and I asked you to share some of these life lessons, how many of you are using some of those life lessons that you mentioned in your every single day lives, in your careers? Is anybody using any of those? Does anybody want to share with us one of those life lessons that you use on a daily basis that helps you become successful in your life? Let's see if we can share 5 of them. Can anybody call out one and we'll see if we can get 5? Go ahead, Mary Beth.
Well, the one I use every day with my kids and also with my U13 players is that mistakes are okay and how to respond to them, how to react to them.
How to respond to it. I like that. Mistakes are okay is a little iffy for people, but how to respond to a mistake. Great. Thanks for sharing that. That's number one. What's another one?
Persevering with adversity.
Absolutely. Persevering with adversity. Good one. Thanks, Reginald. Tracy?
The power of a positive attitude and a smile.
Good. Power of a smile and positive attitude. That's great. What else?
Being a good teammate.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Being a good teammate.
Yeah, being a good teammate every day. There's no better place to learn it than on the athletic field. And one more.
The importance of helping all our players reach their potential.
Mm-hmm. Helping all players realize their potential. Yes, absolutely. So those are the life lessons. I hope that someday you can get paid millions of dollars a year for stopping a soccer ball on a dime, but most of us aren't that lucky and can't do that. But there is no better place than the athletic fields to learn some of these life lessons. And right now, it's the largest organized institution in the country, the Institute of Youth Sports, and it's expanding and it's growing. And what I have found is when I try to plan a meeting with friends over a PTA meeting or something for school or something for church, I get about 50% attendance. You plan something for sports and you tell these parents that they have to be there for this sports event, I get 99% attendance. So that can sort of tell you where the priority is in the country. And people have said, oh my gosh, that's a horrible thing. Sports has taken over the world. It's not a horrible thing. If you can use sports as a vehicle to teach these life lessons, that's a fantastic thing because people are already bought in. We don't have to create something new. So I think that's really cool. This is the challenge. And then the next slide puts them together. Most coaches would say, yeah, my goal is to win, but I'm definitely into the teaching life lessons. My question for you as coaches is, when is that difficult? When do they not mesh very well? We can all pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, of course. I always say, like at the interview, you would say, yes, of course teaching life lessons is more important. Having everybody play and building up their teammates, of course, is more important than winning. But when, coaches, let's get real. When is it time that these two don't mesh together as seamlessly? I want you to turn to somebody next to you and just say a time maybe when you've kind of thought winning was a little bit more important than those life lessons that you were teaching. Okay, then I'll have you turn to a partner, somebody next to you, and what I do sometimes too, if I've asked you to turn to a partner next to you, I'll say, okay, turn to somebody in front of or behind you this time and share with them a story when this might not have gone, the winning kind of superseded the life lessons. And you'll hear a buzz in the room, you'll hear them talking. Would anybody be willing to share this? Okay, so any of you, you've already shared it, you've already got in the open, and I only take maybe one or two. I don't take a lot. If they've shared with a partner, I don't spend a lot of time sharing with everybody. I might only get one example because they've already heard it. But do any of you, can you think of a time when winning, even the greatest coaches, when is winning sort of get a little bit more important than the life lessons?
Sure, when you're picking.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I was going to say if you're picking like a championship team and, versus picking the most talented versus maybe picking the best teammates on the team for that select team or championship team. Sure,
you pick the skills over the attitude sometimes. And unfortunately, the most talented kids don't always have the best attitudes. Isn't that a shame? Yeah, that's a great example. Great example. MB, did you have one too?
Just struggling with playing time when you're in a close game and you need to make those subs so everyone plays, but you don't want to compromise your lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And for that playing time hit it on the head. When I was coaching high school lacrosse, we had a girl named Casey Leap was her name, and she had 100% of the best attitude and effort and energy that you could ever get in a player. She could not catch a lacrosse ball to save her life. She had no idea which end of the field she was usually on. And when she went out on the field, you sort of cringed and thought, oh, just hope she doesn't touch the ball. But as a coach, I wanted to get her in every single game because when she was in the game, everybody got happy. She smiled constantly. She was always cheering her teammates on. But there were games, especially playoff games, when it got down to the last couple of minutes, and I thought, oh, I've got to get her in. I just have to get her in. So one of the ways and one of the things we mentioned in the book is don't wait till the end of the game to put these kids in. If you really believe playing time is important, good coaches get players into games. So one of the really cool tools that you'll find out later, find a strategy to get some of these kids into games earlier. So it's not just the last 2 minutes when you're panicking going, oh, I don't want them to get in. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about, this is what we're going to start with the next time, but I can actually do it. I have a couple minutes. The development zone is a phrase that we started, and I don't want to take the time actually right now. I am going to start with this the next time that we go in, now that I'm looking at the time. So we're going to start with this. This is going to be a lead into the Elm Tree of Mastery that we do next time. I wanted to give us at least 15 to 20 minutes because I want you guys to have a chance to share. Do you have any questions for me on the first 10 slides that end here? Intro to PCA, background information, activities, anything like that? Does anybody have any questions or comments? And I'll pause and wait.
Tracy, my question I think can wait, but it's how to access the slides.
Mine too.
I haven't been able to find it.
Okay, I sent you an email last week that said, it was a separate email and it had the Google link to these. Darren, actually, you said you couldn't find it and you just found it. Did you find it somewhere?
Yes, I launched my Google Drive connection, and then the slide was right there, shared.
Okay, so if you go on Google Drive, it'll say shared with me, and
Yes.
it'll be in there?
Yes.
Okay, I can send it out again. I sent out a separate email last week.
Found
it. Okay, there you go.
Right where you promised it would be.
There you go. So it has been shared. Anyone else? Questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
When setting up for your presentation, you're using all of their equipment, correct?
It depends. If you have equipment, access to equipment like a laptop computer or a projector, that's very, very helpful. When you become a PCA trainer, we send you speakers and we send you like a clicker, like a PowerPoint clicker for your laptop. It is very helpful if you have your own equipment, but if you don't and you live near an office, like the PCA offices all have equipment available, sometimes, in the beginning, I would just call and say, most of the time they're at a school or they're at a rec center, and I'll say, hey, do you have a projector I could use? Ruben, if you want to field that any differently?
Yeah, no, we ask that trainers have a laptop, okay? In your trainer application form, that's one of the questions we ask you is, do you have a laptop? So, but when you make your check-in call 3 days ahead of time, you will find out what they can provide. Even if they can provide all the equipment, it's a good idea for you as a trainer to take what you have because things change, things go wrong. The trickiest one is the projector. Sometimes your organization can't provide a projector or doesn't want to provide the projector, and if you as a trainer don't have access to a projector, then we need to work with you, to get you a projector for that workshop.
Good question. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. I would love to just hear some feedback from you. You guys have been to workshops, you've been to presentations, you've heard stories. I want to give you a chance, and I know this is standing out on the limb too, but I do want to get you guys a chance to share. Do you have a story or do you have an idea on how to get the audience engaged? I have them stand up in a timeline. I have them talk to each other. I have them, high five, whatever they need to do, introduce themselves. If you've given it some thought, what is your start with a bang idea that you'd like to share with the group just to get some other ideas bouncing back and forth? I'm going to give us, the last 5 minutes. That's what I'd like to do is hear some of your ideas. Or even Ruben, if you have any ideas too.
I was thinking of one. We have this female student athlete group here that I started, and we do kind of monthly meetings, and to get them involved, one of our best ones is this one called speed dating, and you have a list of questions, like 5 or 6, and then they partner up and they get like 30 seconds or 1 minute to be with one person, and then you call time, and they have to move to the next person. So it can be really quick, and I thought it could be like, obviously related to what we're doing, but I thought that might be a fun activity.
Yeah. So you'd have the questions written up on cards ahead of time? And then
maybe on the table, like turned down or something. That's how we did it. So they couldn't read them ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then you start the clock, and you can confine it to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, however you want to do it. But it kind of gets the buzz going, and then obviously could share as a group afterwards.
Very cool. Thanks.
Kelly, I still like the story idea that I keep going back to. I think that gets people engaged in the process right away, and I think stories are always something that they can relate to, and hopefully you can find something that kind of relates to everyone in the room. I don't know what mine would be necessarily, but
I was just going to ask you, do you have a story that you want to tell
us? Not quite yet. I'm working on that. So, but I like your concept the other day about we're pretty much in R&D, kind of repeat and duplicate. So I've heard enough stories along the way, even that if you don't necessarily have one from your own personal experience, you can kind of you can kind of share something else that someone else has told you along the way as well.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Kelly, I'll jump in here with an added perspective. I do think stories are powerful. And I think that as a trainer, you want to have a library, a small library of stories that you can pick from to work into workshops if you feel it's right. Okay, so maybe you have 6 to 12 stories from your coaching, from being an athlete, that in this workshop I use this story, in this one I use that one. I think you want to pick your spots with your stories. Okay. I also think that the most powerful stories in a workshop are the ones that the participants tell. Mm-hmm. And my goal, and quite honestly, the way this workshop PowerPoint is designed, is to help the trainer bring out 1 or 2 of those stories in the first 5 minutes of the workshop. So when we ask, talk to a partner about the coach that had the greatest impact on you, let them buzz for a couple minutes. Who's willing to, tell about the coach that you just heard? That's Kelly's style. Tell us about the coach that you just heard about. I let them tell about their own coach. Mm-hmm. When you do that, you're getting a story. Mm-hmm. It's not you bringing the story to the workshop. You're drawing it out of the group. Then, thanks for sharing those stories. It's interesting. The stories I heard were about coaches that had a positive impact on you. By any chance, when I asked the question, did a coach that have a negative impact cross your mind for anybody? And usually people will nod their heads. And I'll go, I see some heads nodding. Is one of you willing to tell us about that coach? Mm-hmm. And then I get another story. And that is usually a very powerful story. Mm-hmm. A coach that had a negative impact. Yeah, my high school coach, what a jerk he was. He was the kind that would grab our face masks, and that's why I stopped playing after my sophomore year. I loved football, but he drove me away from it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
To me, that is more powerful than any story I can bring to the workshop, is if I draw it out of the group and get them to hear from each other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the other part too, and I'm going to end on this today, if you're thinking about your stories and working on your stories, remember a story usually goes longer than you think it does. So I've had a lot of people that have said, oh yeah, I have my story and it's great. I worked it down to 2 minutes, and then they'll go to present it and it ends up being a 10-minute story. And and I time them and I say that introductory story just took like 20 minutes. And they go, really? I had no idea. So really the importance of honing your stories. It might be a fantastic story to you, but if halfway through you've lost the group, it didn't have much impact. Also, on the flip side, what Ruben was saying, you might have some mavens in the audience that want to take the floor and tell their story for 20 minutes. So that's where you have to be careful too about, definitely get the audience to share. But I always make sure I say, does anybody have a quick story or anybody have a brief story? And if somebody's just going on and on and on, I might say, you know what? I would love to hear the end of that story. If you wouldn't mind waiting until the end, and I want to hear the end of it, or something like that. It's hard to cut someone off, but I've had people that want to just monopolize and take over the whole workshop, and they want to talk for 10 minutes. So you have to just be careful. It's all management. It's all people management. All right. Well, I'm going to hold you guys. I'm holding myself accountable to the time. I want to thank you all so much for jumping in. Sorry about the little technical glitch, but I appreciate you joining in. And this one, as I said, is being recorded too, so you can always go back and watch it later. But thanks, guys. If you have any questions, I'm here. Okay. If you need me to send the PowerPoint link again, let me know. If it doesn't work through Google Drive.
Thank you.
Yep,
thanks, everybody. Thank you, Kelly.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great day.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
Happy Easter.
Hey, Carol, I'm going to have you send it to me.
Yep. Now, did you check your Google Drive, Kathy? You can do it while I'm on the Hangout. If you go to Google Drive.
Okay. So I go to my Google Mail or my Google Drive?
Google Drive.
That's where I'm getting confused.
Yeah, it's like a triangle. It looks like a triangle, kind of.
That's where I'm.
When you click on Google Drive, it'll say shared with me. What files have been shared with you?
Yeah. So the first thing that we have the Google Hangout, we have the Google Mail, and then within Google Mail is the Google Drive.
No, the Google Mail, the Google Drive doesn't have anything to do with Google Mail. Scroll down and it looks like a recycle symbol almost. It's a tricolored triangle.